Hi, Elenas here, and today I'm delighted to speak with Richard Seneque, an award-winning author of the audio drama Visionaries. And Richard received an award in the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences for Best Producer, Outstanding Production Audiobook. Welcome, Richard.
Hello, Elena. It's nice to meet you, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Nice to have you here. Our mutual friend and wonderful actress, Julie Byrne, introduced us to each other after I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and I loved her work in Visionaries as a voiceover, and that's why how I got interested in your project. And I've listened to the season 1 of the Visionaries, and I was amazed by the story because it shows a reality to which our society is probably headed.
Right.
Yes. So how did the idea of the series originate? Let's hear the story behind the Visionaries.
Right. So just to kind of give a quick summary, Visionaries takes place in the future in the year 2185, where the world is divided by 2 races. We have the visionary race and the human race. Now, the visionary race is the next step in human evolution. So when they evolve, they awaken these beautiful, colorful, powerful eyes, which grants them special abilities. Whereas humans who did not evolve continue to have the eyes that we have, just normal eyes. So they are now called dead eyes, and they become dead eye slaves to the visionaries because they have not evolved. So the story takes place with the dead eye slaves deciding to rebel against the visionaries. Now, how I came to that idea and what you were saying before of where it kind of symbolizes where we're heading, it wasn't so much where we're heading as opposed to where we're at now that inspired me. And the reason that is, I look at scenarios like, I think Visionaries and what the story represents, it can fit into many different groups. Anyone who is feeling oppressed in whichever way they are, right? You look at what's happening, especially right now, to like the trans community, or me, what inspired me was me being a Black man, or certain things that women would have to go through. So I think it can apply to those various groups. But for me, being Black and just looking at certain privileges that like, what white privilege can give people who are white as opposed to me being Black. So I wanted to tell a story that can kind of open people's mind to the sense of privilege. And that was the motivation, because I think if someone has different privileges than I have simply because of the color of their skin, that's not something that anyone can control. And those privileges that one is afforded is not because of who you are. It is just purely based on the color of your skin. It's not something you worked for or something that you put in a lot of effort. So these advantages put that other person in a different place than I am in. So I just wanted to take the idea of privilege, because I think a lot of times when I've gotten into debates with people, they're like, oh, well, no, that's not true. Like, I've worked for this. No one is denying that you haven't worked for it. We're just trying to point out that there are certain advantages you've had that some other people did not have. So I wanted to take the concept of privilege, but how can I make it a physical, visual, tangible thing that we can see? So that's why I decided, if we have visionaries where you can see their eyes, you can see the power they have, and that awards them these privileges of having a better quality of life, better options, as opposed to people who don't have those eyes and have to become slaves to those people. So, Elena, you can have whoever's in your families, I don't know if you have siblings, cousins, whoever, they can be a visionary and you're not. And just because they were born with these eyes, they are above you. And that is what I think of privilege today. Not because of what you've done or who you are, just because of the color of your skin, you are awarded certain rights that I'm denied. And that's why, that's what motivated me to try to start a conversation. And what made me say, all right, how can I dramatize the idea of privilege that we have today? And I was like, well, great. Some people have these eyes and some people don't. And purely based on that determines on the challenges you have and that you have to face in your life.
So Richard, here, I want to make a comment. So for me, when I listened to season 1 of the Visionaries, I saw the superior class, which oppressed the rest of the people, because superior basically had their power that you symbolized in their special eyes with their special abilities.
Right.
And the rest of the people are just normal people like you and I.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't about only differences between our color of our skin. It was more about that what's going on between global elite and the rest of the people today. That's why I wanted to bring up this. For me, it's more than just about the racial, the oppression of one race against another.
Right.
So for me, it's more, when I heard the story, I'm like, it resonates with my understanding of what's going on in the world right now. So the people who think they are, because they're riches, they have an access to resources. We don't want to call names, of course, but it's a small group of people which has an enormous access to resources and which control the narrative on mass media. Those are visionaries to me, symbolize visionaries today in a real world we're living in. And the rest of the people who are also could be white and Asian and Black, they are dead-eyed, symbolize dead-eye people which are oppressed today by global elite. That's how I saw. And I didn't see, unfortunately, it's like the one race is against the other, or one race is oppressed by the other race. Because I think we're Black and white people and Asian people, we're all more like united today, united in our suffering to keep our freedoms and keep our rights, versus the class which try to oppress us, the global elite try to take from us. That this is how I saw. And correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see. I just didn't see it as the racial problem here.
Oh, and this is why before I got into what I mentioned, it can apply to many different things. So let's say we're going with your idea with someone who has access to resources, right? So if you're speaking to someone who has all these access to resources and you're like, hey, this isn't fair that you have that, they're not going to say you're right. It isn't fair. They're going to say, I've worked for this. I've earned this, without realizing that that particular class of global elite, if you will, it's kind of kept within that small community and nothing comes out. And that's why you have, people over here and then some people down here who never get any of that. So when you say, hey, I don't have that access to the resources that you have and you keep among yourselves, that is supposed to represent what these abilities are. And that's why I'm talking about privilege. They have the privilege to have access to these resources and keep it within that particular community or that particular group. Whereas anyone who's on the outside looking in saying, I don't have access to that. And there are certain things that's put in place that won't allow me to have access to that. So when you say mass media, it's people who have access to control what is being said in the media, right? That's not something that I can call any media cycle and say, hey, this is what's actually happening, because I don't have access to that resource. So that's what I mean by privilege. I don't have the privilege to have that. And that's why I wanted to take the concept of privilege and actually give it a physical thing. So I'm not saying it's only a black and white, and we may have different point of views on racial interactions and such. But that's what I meant why it can be applied to many different things. If you're looking at it from a global standpoint or global elitism or what I said, what motivated me, because I know you were just saying things are a lot different today. And I'm not denying that it isn't, but there is still systemic racism that is deep within, especially in America, that still exists today. So, and what I said before, where this can apply, like I'm not a woman. I don't know what it feels to be in the shoes of a woman, but I am sure there are certain things that they can also take from this. And that's what I like about Visionaries. It can be used for many different, I think in any situation where someone's being oppressed, this can kind of represent that, because with oppression comes someone having access and or privilege to those items to keep that other group of people oppressed. So that's what it's all about. It's just having access. And if you have that privilege in your life, it's kind of like a super ability. And that's what these visionaries have. That's why I didn't want it to be, that's why it was important that visionaries are the next step in human evolution. And it's not aliens coming from a different planet, because it's hard to relate to that. The whole point is, we are all people. It shouldn't be the balance scale shouldn't be tipped one way completely, but unfortunately it is. And this is what I'm hoping to address that and bring those conversations. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you addressed this. The problem of basically people who have a privilege because they just have an access to resources and money and more important things than just money.
Right.
They have the access to the force. So I'm glad you bring this subject. Yes, and that's why I'm because my work is also related to all this, those difficult subjects that we have. I think we have to bring today. We have to talk about today, and so. I know Visionaries have some great selections on platforms like Visual Fiction Festival, Pot Tales 2020, by the way, during the lockdown. So did you do Visionaries during the lockdown? And how?
No, we recorded, I mean, this project has been in the works for years. So we recorded season 1 in 2018. And after editing and getting it all together, when I released it April of 2020, the COVID just happened to be at that time. But there wasn't, everything was recorded, everything was done, and that was just the plan to release that day. And
okay, so COVID didn't affect
it was already recorded.
The work.
It impacted the second season. So that's why I have not been able to release the second season so late, because obviously once COVID happened, I couldn't put the actors back in the studio. And I didn't want to do remote recording, because for me and my style of directing, I just like to have everyone in the same studio together and we go through it. So I decided to just wait. And that's how we just recorded season 2 last October.
Oh, great. Yeah. When it's going to be released?
I'm aiming late winter. It'll come out this year, but like late winter, it'll be out there. I'm in the middle of editing right now as we speak.
I can't wait. It's really keeps me so excited. When I've listened to 5 episodes in season 1, right? 5?
Yeah, there's only 5.
Yeah, I saw all of them twice. I'm like, I want more.
I'm glad to hear that.
And also another platform, one of the platforms where Visionaries have got selected is Project Market. I believe it's Gotham, Gotham, and you had a press release there, which is very important. And so, and I believe Visionaries is participating in their annual Project Market Week in 2021, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I see that the industry has paid lots of attention to your story. So my next question, are you going to turn Visionaries into TV series, TV show?
Right. So honestly, when I first came up with Visionaries, I have only been writing for screen, right? All the things I've written before has been screenplays. So I wrote it for TV when I first had the idea, wrote the script, did a pitch deck. I tried my best to put it out there, and I was not getting any kind of response. But unlike other projects that I've written, and I was like, okay, you wrote that, you tried, you move on. It's the idea for writers to keep writing. I just knew the message and the life that this project would have. I just couldn't put it down and move on to the next one. So I went through 3 different phases. First was a TV phase. And then when that didn't work, I decided I'm going to put it out there myself, whatever way I can. So someone that I co-directed with, he's an illustrator. And he's like, you should do a comic book series. And I was like, that's great. Visuals, we can actually draw it, and then I can still write and put it out there. And, you know, we're months in and I'm writing the panels, we're getting everything ready. And I just realized that I don't think it would have had the same impact that I wanted for it to get to a point to get the attention it needs to get. So I decided to pull out of the comic book and I shifted over to an audio drama. And I was just like, fantastic. And audio drama, I mean, sound is a fantastic thing. If you can execute, it can paint these pictures in people's mind. And I decided like I can still bring out, you know, I come from an acting background, so I love working with actors. So I was like, I get to use actors, I get to direct actors. And yes, there's no visuals, but if done correctly, we can still have a very strong impact and paint these, you know, paint these visuals in our listeners' mind. And, you know, like, as we mentioned, being connected through Julie Byrne, who's fantastic. She's the narrator of Visionaries. You know, having someone like her has such a very strong presence in Visionaries, and she allows the listener, she kind of holds your hand and guides you as
she lets you in.
Yes,
she lets you in. You just get hypnotized by her voice.
Exactly. That's
Julie. Yeah.
That's why I picked her. I first met Julie. She was performing, and I saw it at a theater show. And as I'm watching her, I'm like, that's it. That's my narrator. And I did everything I had to do to get her to join on board. So I'm very grateful she joined. But yeah, audio drama was the closest thing I thought that would go with what I've written for TV. It's still very different. I had to rewrite everything because you can't just take what's for TV and plug it for audio. But it was the closest thing to it where I won't have to compromise on the vision that I had. So yeah, absolutely. I God willing, I'm hoping it gets to the point of TV. But I've been very grateful for what the audio space has provided me in putting the story out.
And who have created the graphics for the stage 2 of development of Visionaries? Because I saw some graphic pictures of, you know, slaves.
Right,
with the masks, the process
the mouth
of their mouth, and eyes, those beautiful, colorful eyes of Visionaries. So who created those?
So that was his name is Hassel McBride. He was the artistic director for season 1, and that's who I was when I was going to do the comic book, he was going to be the illustrator. And then that's when I decided, let me go more in the audio drama realm, but we were still able to use those photos so people can at least have an idea of what these visionaries look like. So when you're hearing it, you know, this is how the red eyes look, this is how the blue eyes look. And so those proved to be very helpful for helping the audience know exactly what's there. But yeah, he illustrated all of the trailer, everything that has any illustration that was Hasiel.
Will you use if you develop Visionaries into this TV show, will you use those images for the characters, for the cast, those costume elements?
Yeah, I mean, like those will be the color. Those are the color of the eyes, and then that's how I envision the mask. Because even if you look at if everyone wanted to go on the website, you see the mask, like everything is covered except the eyes, and it's meant to show like these are the slaves and their human dead eyes. And that's why that's the only thing that pops out. It's a constant reminder of you are inferior to the superior visionaries who have these colorful eyes. So that was the whole point behind the design of the slaves mask. So yeah, I definitely would continue building off of what's been established so far.
I'm curious about, there was a theme in Visionaries, Ash to Flame.
Right.
I love it. I know how this theme was born.
So I you know, to be completely honest, full transparency, I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and that inspired me a lot. Inspired me to create Visionaries a lot. And I don't know if you ever watched it or anything.
I love them.
Okay.
I watched everything.
Okay.
All the seasons twice, maybe. I always watch something I like twice at least.
So I've always enjoyed how each family kind of had their own line. So if you remember, like the Starks was winter is coming.
Yes.
And each family had their own thing. So, you know, in Visionaries, there's the 5 colors, right? There's red, blue, green, orange, and gray. And each color have their own special ability. And each color have their own city. So season 1 takes place in the city of Burning Candle. That's the home of all the red-eye visionaries. They're known as the First Blood. And them being called the First Blood, even in the name, kind of shows a sense of royalty, you know, First Blood, they're meant to be the direct line to the creator, the first visionary, like pretty much their god, they're the descendants. So in the city of Burning Candle and the First Blood, Ash to Flame, it's meant to represent, you know, if you think of this fire that represents their royalty, their legacy, their who they are as a people, as the red-eye visionaries, everything is meant to go to that flame to keep it everlasting. And as you put stuff into fire, at some point it disintegrates, it turns to ash. So it's just kind of meant to give everything to this flame, ash to flame, flame to ash, give everything to the royalty bloodline, give everything to being a first blood and keeping this monarchy and this elitism, the perfect, the descendants keep everything to that and to keeping it alive. So it's more of give everything in your all in the name of Visionaries and to the First Blood. And each city, so each group of visionaries, they have their own phrase, if you will. So we only hear 2 in season 1. So only the red-eye visionaries, the First Blood, would ever say ash to flame, flame to ash. But you have, I don't know if you remember, but there was the general of the orange-eye visionaries, who are the Sun Warriors. He said this line of, the only time a Sun Warrior breaks his honor is to fight dishonor. That is the Sun Warriors phrase, if you will. And they're not a people who are like, we're royalty. They're more a group of people who believe in honor and, you know, have high morals, and doing the honorable thing is the only thing you can do. So each group of visionaries will have their own phrase that they say, and ash to flame is for the First Blood.
And also they burn their enemies and slaves, rebellions, and the fire. They burn them alive.
They burn not only that, but and kind of going back to the privilege. So let's say you have 2 visionaries who have a child, but that child is born with human eyes. They will burn the child alive because he wasn't born with visionary red eye. Yeah.
Not the First Blood. Whew. Yeah. Intensive. So, in talking about this, it's so I just get into the story. I'm there, and I want to ask you, how can we alert people on the possible development of the future using our artistic imagination? And I know you're doing it so well. How do you do it? What would?
Thank you. I think, because even movies that I've seen, like one of my favorite things that's taking place in the future or in what the future can be, I've always loved like the Terminator series, and that was more like man versus machine, right? And what will happen at some point when machine rises, or even the Matrix for that matter. I think history just has a way of repeating itself, and you take what's happening now and you just try to show through your artistic vision. If we don't make these changes we need to do, we're doomed for it to repeat, and us to kind of, it can be in a whole different way, but the theme, the essence of it is meant to repeat itself. So you write from what you know. And I think it's not like no one has the ability to see what is going to be. We're writing from what we know because we've seen countless times history repeating itself. And I think that's how you do it. And you find your artistic spin and try to put it out there as a message of what the state of the world and where it can go.
Let's talk about yourself. You went to the conservatory for acting.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to become a writer rather than an actor?
So yeah, I went to New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, and I remember after like graduating and trying to audition, you had some good times, you had some bad times. And ultimately, I'm a very hands-on person. I think it was hard for me to have to wait for a role to be available for me to do. It's part of me. And as I just kind of got tired of waiting, and I was like, why don't I start to try to create my own thing and where I can be in. Now, it's funny how life works, because I didn't know, like I love writing. I think I'm meant to be a writer more than an actor. When I decided to do that, I didn't do it because I love writing. I did it because I wanted to act. So I'm like, I'm going to write my own stuff. And lo and behold, I actually turned out to love it. So I stopped acting for quite some time and only just focused on writing. So it worked out well, but that's what it was. It was me just not wanting to wait and be active and create these things and just wanting to create. And I think it's very difficult. And so I have such a high respect for actors, because you're waiting for the moment and then you have to strike when the iron's hot and be present and be ready. And, hopefully it works out. And for me, it wasn't working out. And that's where I decided, you know what, I want to write my own stuff. And, I started writing like in my mid-20s. And then, script after script, you start developing a skill, or you not a skill, but you start to find your voice. And I think as I started to find my voice through the scripts, that's when I got to the point where I can write Visionaries.
What did you write before Visionaries?
So just before Visionaries, I worked on a feature film called Capio. It's a science fiction piece. I believe it's still in post. It was developed by Alexander Kostic. It was directed by Alexander Kostic, excuse me. And just before then, I was wrapping up the first script that I directed. It was a short film I actually co-directed. So this was with the same illustrator who did all the art for Visionaries, Hasiel. We co-directed Sweet Shadow, which was like, it was both our first short film, first time in a director's chair. And it was, if anything, it was the biggest experience. Even when I was in school for film, nothing taught me as much as actually doing my first short film. And all the mistakes that were made, the pitfalls that we went through, it helped me because we produced it. Both of us produced that short film. So it kind of showed me the ropes on how to be an effective producer and what do you have to do, how each step is very important, pre-production, production, and post-production. It's very important to take those 3 steps as serious as possible and not assume that you can just make up and try to fix things on the fly. You just have to be focused. And those were the things I worked on. And then beyond that, I've written a lot of scripts that just hasn't gotten made or hasn't, gotten out there. So Visionaries wasn't like the first time I've written. I have a hard drive full of scripts that I've written, but this was the project that I guess, took off and started getting some kind of recognition.
Do you have any stories that can tell how your previous experience provided you with the tools to direct and create and work with on Visionaries? Some like maybe I always like to ask about the golden and the dark shadow. And the dark shadow, you walk through the dark shadow of your dark experience about your failure, maybe, which brings you to the gold shadow and
Right.
your success, which you enjoy now. So do you have any stories for us that you can share, not just like success and win, which you have, you own it, but also something that brought you there, that helped you to succeed
Right.
in Visionaries?
Uh,
Remember, it could be specific, could be,
right.
I like specific stories about with the details. No, not necessarily names, but you know.
Oh, no, yeah, no problem.
Possible.
So when I was doing the short film, I remember when I was in school and my like film teacher always just saying like, something is going to go wrong on set. That just happens. Even if you plan everything, like that is just the way it is. And I've learned firsthand. So we did the short, and I think it was the lack of our pre-production and planning. It leaked into the production. So we were a little bit unorganized. So we didn't get all the shots we needed to get. So we needed to try to set up reshoot days. But then when we needed to do reshoot days, the actors were either too busy or just didn't want to do it. So now we had to rewrite the script and change things. And when we had to change things, we underestimated the time and the money it would cost to make those changes. So that made the project go a lot longer than it had to. And then when we had the final product, it was nothing that we thought it was going to be in the beginning. And that's what I mean. I look at production kind of like, I think it's relay race. When when you're running, you hand the baton to the next person and then they run and they hand it. I think that's a lot like production. So you can have, if I'm running with the baton to hand it to my teammate to continue the run, if I trip, if I fall, no matter how fast the next runner is, that person is going to be behind because I didn't do my job to pass the baton. So if you don't do everything you need to do in pre-production, it's going to leak into production. And then then you're playing catch up in production and it ends up leaking into your post-production. And that's what happened the first time. And that's why the short film was different than what we planned for and took 3 times longer than we anticipated. And the longer it is, the more cost, obviously. So much money was getting burned. And in the end, it was just something that I think served more as an experience than anything else. So when I came into Visionaries, it just made me appreciate, okay, here's my pre-production. Let me make sure I have all the actors ready. Let's get the rehearsals. Let's do everything. So by the time we get to the studio, if there's any time lapse, if things fall behind, at least I know my actors are ready to go. They understand. And even this past October was a fantastic experience. Everyone was prepared. We got everything we needed. So now that I'm editing in post, there's nothing from the last 2 stages that I'm concerned about. And my main focus is only on editing in post-production. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned, of just appreciating each phase and doing your best to make sure you do all your pre-production, all your production, and all your post-production.
It's important, yes, absolutely. And what's the next project you're currently working on?
So as I mentioned, we finished recording season 2. So I kind of do a little bit of everything. I edit, I do the sound design, directed, wrote it, cast it. So now I'm in the editing stage, and actually no, I'm more in the sound design stage. So now I'm adding the sound effects, and that is a project that I am anticipating. It will come out this year. I'm anticipating it will come out like late winter when I'll be able to release it to the public.
I just wanna make a note here. You're talking about Visionaries season 2.
Visionaries season 2. That's correct.
Great. Yes. And so please share your website and social media so people can learn more about your work.
Yeah. So Instagram, Facebook, we're just Visionaries Audio Drama. On Twitter, it's at Visionaries AD. You can go to our website, www.visionariesaudiodrama.com. If you want to check out season 1, we're on most podcast platforms, the major ones. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you can go directly to the website and listen there. If you want a little bit of more, I guess, background information, we have that on the website. There's a behind the scenes video you can watch on the website too. Just kind of want to delve in more into the story. And yeah, follow us if you can. And once we get closer to releasing season 2, once I can release the trailer for season 2, I'll be posting it everywhere. And the best way is if you're following us, and then you can catch on, and hopefully you'll be there to listen to season 2.
And also I like to follow up with people I interview and I talk to later when their major projects is about to be released and be out, and we can do like some quick catch-up video and talk about this. So we post it too, and I'm happy to do it with you once we're getting closer to the date of release of season 2.
Yes, thank you.
Is anything else, Richard, you'd like to share with us? Any stories, dark or fun? Anything you want to suggest to people, creative people? Because I know you successfully, my channel is about, supporting, it's about a creativity and a bank account, about supporting your arts financially and still doing your artistic work. And looks like you combined both together, financial part and artistic part, very successfully. So how did you do this?
I think, it's especially, I think being an artist too, it's easy to kind of let doubt seep in and you start questioning things. I certainly have. But I think it's just, if you have a story and you have a vision, you just try to stay to it and try to do whatever you can to not compromise it. And that's why I decided to do an audio drama where I can still keep the integrity of the vision that I wanted to put out there. And, I believe things kind of happen for a reason. As much as I realized I wanted to be an actor, I'm so happy I'm a writer now. I'm so happy I went through the training I went as an actor, because I think that helped molded me to the director I am today. And if I didn't go to being in class and 8 hours of just watching my fellow classmates act and me get on stage, I don't think I'd be the director or the writer I am today. So, just keep going with it, keep evolving, keep growing as an artist. And I think the key of any artist is just finding your own voice or identity or who you are through your craft. And I think that's really important. And the more you do it, the more you kind of find who you are. And that's the thing I just like to pass on. Just keep trying, and just have to put in the work.
Yeah, I love it. To find your own voice. And this is, I think, the most important suggestion we can give today to creators who are eager to put their work out there.
Yeah.
Just go create, find your own voice. I love it. Yeah. So with this said, I thank you, Richard, for being with me today. I think it was great to talk to you and share your story and the story about Visionaries. And I'll be in touch with you, and so we take from there. I look forward. I wish you good luck with all your projects. And can't wait to listen to the next season of Visionaries.
Thank you, Elena. I really appreciate it.
Please reach out to me once it's about to go.
Absolutely.
There.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Need this story. People need to hear this story. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Have a great day, and thank you for being with me.
Okay. Until next time.